Harper Barker wiped the sweat from her brow as she demonstrated the proper form for a kettlebell swing to her new client. Fitness wasn't just her job, it was her passion, her sanctuary, her way of building herself back up after her world had fallen apart 2 years ago. Elite Fitness was the perfect place to do what she loved. The state-of-the-art gym had everything a personal trainer could dream of, even if the mysterious owner never showed his face. "That's it, Mrs. Thompson. Keep your back straight and hinge at the hips," Harper encouraged, watching her client's form improve with each repetition. The gym was relatively quiet this Tuesday morning, just how Harper liked it. The floor-to-ceiling windows let in the morning sunlight, making the sleek equipment gleam. "Harper, you're a miracle worker. I've never felt stronger," Mrs. Thompson said between controlled breaths. Harper smiled, genuinely pleased. "That's all you. I'm just here to guide you." After her session ended, Harper headed to the staff room to grab her water bottle. Her colleague and friend, Zoe, was scrolling through her phone with an excited expression. "Have you heard the news?" Zoe asked without looking up. Harper took a long sip of water. "What news?" "Apparently, the owner is finally coming to check out the gym." After 3 years of being completely hands-off, Zoe's eyes widened. "No one's ever even seen him. Ryan says he's some big-shot billionaire with like 100 businesses." Harper shrugged. "So, as long as our paycheck's clear, I don't care if he's a billionaire or a leprechaun. You should care." "What if he decides to sell the place? Or change everything?" Zoe persisted. Harper felt a pang of worry. Elite Fitness had become her second home after her divorce. The thought of losing it made her stomach tighten. When is this mysterious billionaire gracing us with his presence? Harper asked, trying to sound unconcerned. "According to Ryan, sometime this week," Zoe replied. "And Harper, wear something nice. First impressions matter." Harper rolled her eyes. "I'll be sure to break out my designer workout gear." Later that afternoon, Harper was wiping down equipment in the weight room when she noticed a tall man she hadn't seen before examining one of the newer treadmills. He wore simple black track pants and a fitted gray t-shirt that showcased broad shoulders. Nothing about him screamed billionaire, just another fitness enthusiast from the looks of it. Putting on her friendly trainer smile, Harper approached him. "Hi there. Need any help with the equipment?" The man turned, and Harper felt a momentary catch in her breath. He had striking blue eyes, a strong jawline softened by the hint of a 5 o'clock shadow, and dark hair that curled slightly at his temples. "Actually, I would," he said with a warm smile. "I haven't used this model before." "It's pretty straightforward," Harper explained, stepping closer. "I'm Harper, by the way, one of the personal trainers here." "Blake," he said, extending his hand. "Blake Harrison. Nice to meet you, Harper." His handshake was firm but not overpowering. Harper noticed calluses on his palms, definitely not the soft hands of someone who only pushed papers for a living. "So, new member?" she asked, showing him how to program the treadmill. "Something like that," he replied with a hint of amusement in his voice. "I'm just getting the lay of the land." "Well, Elite is the best gym in the city, if I do say so myself. State-of-the-art equipment, great trainers, though I'm biased on that front, and the best protein smoothies at the juice bar." High praise. "What's your favorite smoothie?" Blake asked, seeming genuinely interested. "The berry blaster with added spinach. Sounds weird, tastes amazing." Harper glanced at her watch. "Speaking of which, I've got a client in 5 minutes. Enjoy your workout, Blake. If you need anything, just flag down any of us in the blue shirts." As she walked away, Harper could feel his eyes on her. She straightened her posture automatically, feeling an unexpected flutter in her stomach. It had been a long time since she'd felt that instant spark with someone. The next morning, Harper arrived early to prepare for her 6 a.m. client. To her surprise, Blake was already there, doing pull-ups with perfect form on the bar in the functional training area. "Early riser," she called out, setting down her gym bag. Blake completed his set before dropping down gracefully. "Always have been. Can't seem to sleep past 5 a.m. no matter how hard I try. Same here. Though in my case it's by necessity rather than nature." Harper began arranging battle ropes for her client's workout. "Need a hand?" Blake asked, already moving to help. "I've got it," Harper said automatically, then softened. "But thanks for offering. Most people wouldn't." "I'm not most people," he replied with a small smile. Over the next few days, Blake became a regular fixture at the gym, always arriving early and staying for at least an hour. Harper found herself looking forward to their morning interactions, brief conversations about workout routines, nutrition, or the unusually rainy weather. There was something refreshing about his straightforward manner and the way he listened intently when she spoke. On Friday, Harper was demonstrating proper squat form to a group class when she noticed Blake watching from the sidelines. Their eyes met briefly, and he gave her a subtle nod of approval that made her cheeks warm. After class, he approached her. "Your coaching style is impressive," he said. "You're firm but encouraging." "Thanks," Harper said, taking a swig from her water bottle. "I believe in pushing people just enough not so hard they quit, but hard enough that they see results." "Philosophy of life right there," Blake commented. "Listen, I was wondering if you'd be interested in grabbing coffee sometime. Maybe after your shift today." Harper hesitated. Dating hadn't been on her radar since her divorce from Mark 2 years ago. The painful end to their 8-year marriage had left her wary of getting involved again. "I don't date gym members," she said finally, the excuse sounding weak even to her own ears. Blake's expression was understanding rather than disappointed. "Fair enough. Professional boundaries are important. But thanks for asking," Harper added quickly, feeling unexpectedly regretful. The weekend passed without seeing Blake, and Harper found herself scanning the gym for him on Monday morning. When he finally showed up around noon, he greeted her with the same warm smile as always, no awkwardness from her rejection evident. "Harper." Ryan, the gym manager, called from the front desk. "Can you come here for a minute?" When Harper approached, Ryan lowered his voice. "The owner is definitely coming this week. Just got confirmation. There's going to be a staff meeting on Thursday to introduce everyone." "Finally, the mystery man reveals himself," Harper said with a laugh. "This is serious," Ryan insisted. "He's been reviewing all our operations remotely. This could mean big changes." Harper glanced over her shoulder at Blake, who was now spotting another member on the bench press. Something about him made her feel like whatever changes might come, she'd be okay. Thursday arrived with a buzz of nervous energy among the staff. The meeting was scheduled for 5 p.m. after the post-work rush. Harper had just finished her last session and was heading to the locker room to freshen up when she nearly collided with Blake in the hallway. "Whoa, sorry," she exclaimed, steadying herself with a hand on his arm. She couldn't help but notice the solid muscle beneath her fingers. "My fault," Blake said, though he didn't move back immediately. "You seem in a hurry. Staff meeting. The elusive owner is finally gracing us with his presence." A flicker of something amusement crossed Blake's face. "Sounds important." "According to management, the fate of the universe hangs in the balance," Harper joked. "I should go get ready." "Good luck," Blake said, stepping aside. "Hope the owner isn't too terrifying." Harper hurried to the locker room, quickly changing into the blue Elite Fitness polo shirt that was part of her uniform. She rarely wore it, preferring her own workout gear for training sessions, but today called for protocol. The staff gathered in the group exercise studio, chairs arranged in rows facing the front where Ryan stood nervously checking his watch. "Where is he?" Zoe whispered to Harper as they took seats in the back row. "I'm dying to see what a billionaire gym owner looks like." "Probably wearing a suit made of $100 bills," Harper whispered back, making Zoe snort with laughter. Ryan cleared his throat. "Thank you all for staying late. As you know, the owner of Elite Fitness will be joining us momentarily." The door opened and Blake walked in. Harper's confusion lasted only seconds before the truth dawned on her as Ryan extended his hand enthusiastically. "Mr. Harrison, thank you for joining us. Everyone, I'd like to introduce Blake Harrison, the owner of Elite Fitness." The room erupted in applause while Harper sat frozen in her chair. Blake, or rather, Mr. Harrison, smiled politely, his eyes scanning the room until they found Harper's. He held her gaze for a moment, a question in his expression. "Thank you all for being here," Blake began. "I know I've been an absent owner, and that was intentional. I wanted Elite Fitness to develop its own culture without my constant interference. From what I've seen this week, you've exceeded my expectations." As he continued talking about his vision for the gym, Harper could barely focus on his words. The friendly, down-to-earth guy she'd been developing feelings for was actually her billionaire boss. It felt like a cruel joke. When the meeting ended, Harper slipped out quickly, avoiding Blake's attempt to catch her eye. She needed time to process this revelation. The next morning, Harper debated calling in sick, but decided against it. She wouldn't let this situation affect her professionalism. She arrived at her usual early time, half expecting Blake to be there, but the gym was empty except for the night security guard preparing to leave. She was setting up for her first client when Blake's voice came from behind her. "Can we talk?" Harper turned slowly. "Mr. Harrison." "What can I help you with?" "Blake," he corrected. "Please." "I think Mr. Harrison is more appropriate considering you're my boss," Harper said stiffly. Blake sighed. "I should have told you who I was from the beginning. I'm sorry for the deception. Were you testing us?" "Some kind of undercover boss thing?" Harper asked, unable to keep the hurt from her voice. "No, nothing like that," Blake insisted. "I genuinely wanted to experience the gym as a regular member would, and then I met you and I enjoyed being just Blake with you." Harper crossed her arms. "Well, now I know the truth. Is there anything else, Mr. Harrison? Would you have coffee with me? Not as your boss, I can sign whatever paperwork HR needs to make that clear, just as someone who'd like to get to know you better." "I don't think that's a good idea," Harper said, though her resolve was weakening under his earnest gaze. "One coffee," Blake persisted. "After that, if you still feel the same way, I'll respect your decision." Harper hesitated, then nodded reluctantly. "One coffee. Tomorrow morning before my first client." "Thank you," Blake said, his smile returning. "I'll see you then." The next morning, they met at a small cafe 2 blocks from the gym. Blake was already there when Harper arrived, sitting at a corner table with 2 steaming mugs. "I took a guess on your order," he said as she sat down. "Americano with room for cream." Harper was surprised he'd remembered her coffee preference from a casual mention days earlier. "Good memory." "I pay attention to what matters," Blake said simply. An awkward silence fell between them until Harper finally spoke. "So, Blake Harrison, billionaire gym owner, what else don't I know about you?" Blake took a deep breath. "I inherited my father's construction company when I was 27. It was already successful, but I expanded into sustainable building materials and affordable housing projects. The fitness chain came later, my way of promoting wellness alongside better living environments." "Why Elite Fitness? Why not just invest in something less hands-on?" Harper asked, genuinely curious. "I nearly died 5 years ago," Blake said quietly. "Heart attack at 32, genetic condition combined with too much stress and too little self-care. Fitness literally saved my life during my recovery. I wanted to create spaces where others could transform their lives too." Harper hadn't expected such a personal revelation. "I'm sorry, I didn't know." "How could you?" Blake smiled wryly. "The point is, I'm not just some rich guy playing at owning a gym. This matters to me." "Why were you absent for so long then?" Harper challenged. "Building the business took all my focus initially. Then last year, I realized I'd created something I'd never actually experienced as a user. That's why I decided to visit each location incognito first, before making any changes." Harper nodded slowly, beginning to understand. "And what changes are you planning for our location?" "Actually, I think Elite Fitness Oakland is running beautifully," Blake said. "The staff is exceptional, the atmosphere is welcoming but motivating, and your personal training program has the highest client retention rate of all our locations." Pride flickered through Harper despite herself. "We work hard." "It shows," Blake agreed. "Now, can I ask you something?" Why did you become a personal trainer? The question caught Harper off guard. She rarely talked about her journey, but something about Blake's direct gaze made her want to be honest. My ex-husband left me for his 22-year-old assistant, she said bluntly. Told me I'd let myself go while supporting him through law school and the early years of his career. I was devastated, not just because of the betrayal, but because a small part of me wondered if he was right. Blake's expression darkened, but he remained silent, letting her continue. I'd always been active before our marriage, but gradually stopped prioritizing my health while focusing on his needs. After the divorce, I threw myself into fitness not to get him back, but to reclaim myself. I discovered I had a talent for helping others do the same. His loss, Blake said quietly. Truly, Harper shrugged. Best thing he ever did for me, honestly. I found my passion. It shows in how you work with your clients, Blake said. You don't just train bodies, you build confidence. The compliment felt genuine, and Harper felt her walls beginning to lower. Your turn. Tell me something real about yourself that isn't in your Forbes profile, Blake laughed. I'm terrified of heights. I make terrible pancakes but great omelets, and despite owning multiple properties, I live in a relatively modest house because large, empty spaces make me feel lonely. Now that I didn't expect, Harper said with a small smile. What didn't you expect? Vulnerability from a billionaire. Blake leaned forward slightly. Money doesn't shield you from being human, Harper. Sometimes it just gives you more places to hide. Their coffee date extended well past the planned hour, and Harper had to rush to make it back for her first client. As they walked quickly toward the gym, Blake asked, "Would it be pushing my luck to ask for a second date?" Harper slowed her pace. "This is complicated, Blake. You're still technically my boss. What if I wasn't?" "What do you mean?" "I've been thinking about restructuring the management anyway. Each gym would be a separate entity with its own ownership structure. The managers and senior staff at each location would become partial owners." Harper stopped walking completely. "Are you serious?" "Completely. It aligns with my philosophy of empowering people to have ownership of their work," Blake explained. "But I want to be clear, this isn't conditional on you dating me. The restructuring will happen either way." Harper studied his face for any sign of manipulation, but found only sincerity. "Let me think about it. The date, I mean." "Of course," Blake said with an understanding nod. "Take all the time you need." Over the next 2 weeks, Blake's promised restructuring began taking shape. Harper and the other senior staff attended meetings where lawyers explained the new ownership model. True to his word, Blake kept his personal interactions with Harper professional during this time, though she occasionally caught him watching her with undisguised interest. The more Harper learned about Blake, both from their limited interactions and from what she observed in his business decisions, the more her initial resistance faded. He treated every employee with respect, solicited input from all levels of staff, and showed genuine concern for creating a positive environment. One evening, as Harper was leaving after her last client, she found Blake waiting near the front entrance. "Harper," he called softly. "Do you have a minute?" She approached him, noticing he held a small envelope. "What's that?" "The official ownership transfer documents," he said, handing it to her. "You now own 5% of Elite Fitness Oakland with options to increase your stake over time." Harper opened the envelope with shaking hands, scanning the legal document that confirmed his words. "This is incredible, thank you. You've earned it," Blake said simply. "And now, with the ownership transfer complete, I have a question." "Yes. Would you have dinner with me tomorrow night?" "Not as your boss, because I'm not anymore, but as a man who hasn't been able to stop thinking about you since the moment you corrected my kettlebell form." Harper laughed, remembering their first interaction. "I did not correct your form. Your form was perfect." "I may have deliberately done it wrong to get your attention," Blake admitted with a grin. "Sneaky," Harper said, feeling a warmth spread through her chest. "And yes, I'll have dinner with you tomorrow." Their first official date took place at a small Italian restaurant where Blake had reserved a quiet corner table. Harper wore a simple blue dress that made her eyes stand out, while Blake had traded his usual workout gear for dark jeans and a navy button-down shirt. No suit. Harper teased as they sat down. "I save those for when I absolutely have to impress someone," Blake replied. "Tonight, I just want to be comfortable with you." The dinner conversation flowed easily, covering childhood memories, favorite books, and travel dreams. Harper found herself laughing more than she had in years. "Can I ask you something personal?" Blake said as they shared a tiramisu for dessert. "That depends on how personal," Harper replied, taking another bite. "Why did you really turn me down that first time I asked you out?" "Was it really just the gym member rule?" Harper set down her fork. "Partly, but mostly I was scared. My ex-husband did a number on my self-confidence. The idea of dating again, especially someone I was already attracted to, felt risky." "And now?" Blake asked quietly. "Now I'm still scared," Harper admitted. "But I'm more afraid of missing out on something potentially wonderful than I am of getting hurt again." Blake reached across the table, taking her hand in his. "I would never intentionally hurt you, Harper. That's a promise I can make." "Don't make promises you might not be able to keep," Harper said gently. "Just be honest with me always. That's all I ask." "That I can definitely promise," Blake said, squeezing her hand. Their relationship progressed naturally over the following months. Blake continued to oversee the entire elite fitness chain, but delegated much of the day-to-day operations to focus on new sustainable building projects. Harper thrived in her new role as part owner, implementing a community outreach program that offered free fitness classes to underprivileged youth. 6 months into their relationship, Blake invited Harper to his home for the first time, a modern but modest lakeside house with large windows overlooking the water. "This is your idea of relatively modest?" Harper asked incredulously as she took in the beautiful space. "It's only 4 bedrooms," Blake defended with a smile. "My business manager wanted me to buy a mansion with 12. As Blake gave her a tour, Harper noticed that despite the house's elegant design, it did indeed feel personal rather than ostentatious. His home office was cluttered with architectural drawings and sustainability research. The kitchen was clearly well used, with a collection of well-worn cookbooks on the counter. "You really do cook," Harper observed, flipping through one of the books. "I told you great omelets, terrible pancakes," Blake reminded her. "Though I've been practicing the pancakes, I was hoping to impress you with breakfast tomorrow." Harper raised an eyebrow. "Pretty confident I'm staying the night, aren't you?" Blake stepped closer, wrapping his arms around her waist. "Hopeful, not confident. There's a difference." Harper leaned into his embrace. "Well, I did bring a toothbrush, so your hopes are well-founded." Later that night, as they lay together in his bed, Harper traced lazy patterns on Blake's chest. "Can I tell you something? Anything," he murmured, playing with her hair. "When Zoe told me the mysterious billionaire owner was coming to inspect the gym, I pictured some stuffy old man in an expensive suit who would ruin everything we'd built." Blake chuckled. "And instead you got me in workout gear pretending to be clueless about treadmills." "I'm glad it was you," Harper said softly. "I'm glad you were incognito at first. It gave me a chance to know the real you before all the external stuff." "The real me is who I am with you," Blake said, pressing a kiss to her forehead. "The billionaire part is just circumstance. It's not who I am." A year after their first coffee date, Blake took Harper on a hiking trip to a beautiful mountain overlook impressive considering his fear of heights. At the summit, with the valley spread out below them in autumnal splendor, he dropped to one knee. "I have a confession," he said, looking up at her surprised face. "I've been carrying this ring for 3 months, waiting for the perfect moment. Then I realized there is no perfect moment, just perfect certainty that you're the woman I want to spend my life with." Harper's eyes filled with tears as he continued. "You've taught me that true strength isn't about business success or material wealth. It's about vulnerability, honesty, and the courage to open your heart again after it's been broken. Harper Barker, will you marry me?" "Yes," Harper whispered, pulling him to his feet. "Absolutely yes." Their wedding 6 months later was intimate but beautiful, held at Blake's lakeside home with just close friends and family. Elite fitness staff from all locations attended, including Zoe, who gave a toast recounting how she'd teased Harper about impressing the mysterious billionaire owner. "Little did I know she'd end up marrying him," Zoe concluded, raising her glass. To Harper and Blake, proof that sometimes the best things happen when we least expect them. 2 years after their wedding, Elite Fitness had expanded to 30 locations nationwide, each operating on the employee ownership model Blake had pioneered. Harper had developed a certification program for trainers specializing in emotional wellness alongside physical fitness, drawing from her own journey of healing and strength. One evening, as they sat on their deck watching the sunset over the lake, Harper rested her head on Blake's shoulder. "Do you ever think about how differently things might have turned out if you just introduced yourself as the owner that first day?" she asked. Blake considered the question. "I think we'd have eventually found our way to each other, but it might have taken longer to break through the barriers." "What barriers?" "Your wariness of getting hurt again. My tendency to keep people at a distance because they often want something from me. By meeting as just two people who love fitness, we bypassed all that." Harper nodded, placing her hand on her slightly rounded belly. "Well, I'm glad we figured it out when we did. This little one is proof that timing is everything." Blake covered her hand with his, feeling the subtle movement of their growing child. "Best investment I ever made," he said softly. "The gym?" Harper asked with a knowing smile. "No," Blake replied, kissing her tenderly. "Taking that first step toward you, everything good in my life now started with that moment." As the sun dipped below the horizon, Harper reflected on the journey that had brought them here. From a personal trainer rebuilding her life after heartbreak, to a woman who had found not just love but a true partnership, someone who valued her strength as much as her vulnerability. And Blake had found something his billions could never buy: a home in the truest sense of the word, with someone who saw the man behind the fortune. Sometimes the greatest gifts arrive in the most unexpected packages. For Harper, it had been a supposed gym newcomer needing help with a treadmill. For Blake, it had been a determined trainer with a warm smile who wasn't impressed by his wealth but by his character. Together, they had built something stronger than either could have created alone: a love based on mutual respect, shared values, and the courage to be truly seen.